Welcome to Ancient Mysteries. I'm your host, Ben Carter, and in today's episode we journey deep into one of the most provocative questions in ancient history. Did a race of gods from beyond the stars come to Earth not to enlighten humanity, but to mine for gold? From ancient tablets to mysterious ruins, the legend of the Anunnaki challenges everything we think we know about human origins. Stay with us as we uncover the buried past. The story of the Anunnaki begins in the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, a land nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now modern-day Iraq. This region, often referred to as the cradle of civilization, gave rise to the Sumerians around 6,000 years ago. The Sumerians are credited with many firsts. The first known writing system called cuneiform, some of the earliest city-states, advanced agricultural techniques, and an elaborate pantheon of deities. Among these deities were the Anunnaki, a group of powerful beings believed to have descended from the heavens. According to Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki were divine rulers tasked with overseeing the affairs of Earth. Their name roughly translates to those who came down from the heavens, and they were often depicted as powerful, humanoid figures associated with both the sky and the underworld. The Sumerians believed the Anunnaki lived among them, guiding civilization and delivering divine laws known as the Me. These divine decrees encompassed everything from leadership and justice to crafts and social customs. One of the most intriguing aspects of Sumerian civilization is the sophistication of their astronomical knowledge. Their star charts, planetary alignments, and calendrical systems suggest a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. Some researchers argue that this advanced knowledge hints at an origin far older or more advanced than conventional history allows. Within this cultural framework, the Anunnaki served not just as religious symbols, but as potential bearers of advanced wisdom. The Sumerian king lists add further mystery. These tablets catalogue the reigns of kings stretching back tens of thousands of years. What makes them perplexing is the assertion that early rulers governed for impossibly long periods, some for thousands of years. According to the texts, these were not metaphorical reigns or symbolic errors. The numbers are written plainly and deliberately. When questioned, mainstream scholars often dismiss these timelines as mythological exaggeration. Yet their consistency across multiple texts raises important questions. Temples and ziggurats dedicated to the Anunnaki were constructed with astonishing precision. The ziggurat of Ur, for example, was built in honor of the moon god Nana, but similar structures across the region were believed to house or honor various Anunnaki. These massive stone platforms served as both religious centers and physical representations of the divine order. The presence of high platforms was symbolic, possibly designed to mirror the mountaintop abodes of the gods, or, as some have suggested, landing platforms for heavenly visitors. In many myths, the Anunnaki were divided into higher and lower ranks. The higher-ranking gods stayed in the heavens or ruled from the skies, while the lower-ranking ones were said to perform laborious tasks on Earth. This division would become critical in later legends, suggesting a rebellion among the gods and the creation of mankind, not as a divine act of benevolence, but as a solution to a labor shortage. The ancient narratives form a tapestry rich with symbolism, but for those looking closely, they may also reveal a hidden history. At the heart of the Anunnaki Gold Theory lies a singular question: why gold? The ancient myths that reference the Anunnaki do not always make their purpose explicit, but a deeper examination of the Enuma Elish and other Mesopotamian creation texts provides hints that their arrival on Earth was driven by necessity. According to these accounts, Earth was not chosen at random, it was targeted. The Anunnaki, struggling with labor shortages on their home world, required a resource found in abundance on Earth: gold. Zecharia Sitchin, a scholar and author who popularized the ancient astronaut hypothesis, proposed a controversial yet compelling interpretation of these ancient stories. Drawing from translations of Sumerian tablets, Sitchin claimed that the Anunnaki came from a distant planet called Nibiru, a world that entered our solar system on an elongated orbit every 3,600 years. On Nibiru, a crisis had unfolded. The planet's atmosphere was deteriorating, and gold, an ideal conductor and reflector, was needed to stabilize it. Sitchin argued that the Anunnaki discovered gold in the Earth's crust and in the rivers of southern Africa. At first, the laborious task of extracting it fell to the lesser gods, known in some texts as the Ijigi. These beings toiled in the mines, but the physical burden grew unbearable, leading them to revolt. Faced with a crisis, the Anunnaki were forced to find a new solution. That solution, according to the ancient texts and Sitchin's interpretation, was the creation of humanity. The story of human creation is not unique to Sumer. What makes the Sumerian version distinctive is its explicit depiction of genetic manipulation. In the Epic of Atrahasis, one of the oldest known Mesopotamian myths, the gods meet to resolve the labor crisis. Their answer is to fashion a worker, intelligent, obedient, and suited to toil. They mix the blood of a god with the clay of the earth, creating a being capable of serving the Anunnaki. This hybrid was not born naturally, but crafted through deliberate intervention. These stories echo across other ancient traditions. In Egypt, the god Khnum molds humans on a potter's wheel. In the Hebrew Bible, Adam is formed from the dust of the ground and animated by divine breath. While such narratives are often viewed symbolically, the Sumerian texts present them with startling specificity, detailing meetings between gods, decisions to alter existing life forms, and references to the use of essence or life force in their creation process. The consistent presence of gold in ancient myths and burial practices further deepens the mystery. Gold was not only valued but often associated with divinity. It adorned temples, idols, and tombs, not as currency, but as a sacred material. Was this merely symbolic, or does it echo a forgotten age when gold was literally the reason for contact between worlds? These questions drive the theory forward and challenge the boundary between mythology and possible memory. Evidence that could support the Anunnaki Gold Theory often begins in the Earth itself, specifically in the mines of southern Africa. In what is now modern-day Zimbabwe and South Africa, archaeologists have discovered thousands of ancient gold mines scattered across the landscape. Some of these mines date back tens of thousands of years, far earlier than any known organized civilization. Their existence raises a question that conventional history has yet to fully explain. Who was mining gold so long ago, and for what purpose? These prehistoric mining sites, found particularly near areas like the Suika-Bosrand Hills and the Limpopo River Valley, show signs of extensive excavation. Circular stone structures nearby, once thought to be cattle pens or dwellings, are now being reconsidered by some researchers as remnants of a lost industrial operation. The structures are aligned with cardinal directions and appear to follow advanced geometric patterns. While mainstream archaeologists remain cautious, those who support alternative history suggest these were not tribal villages, but functional components of a larger gold extraction system, perhaps even ancient mining colonies. Even more intriguing is the presence of legends from the region that speak of sky gods who came down and taught early humans the secrets of metalwork and mining. In the oral traditions of the Zulu people, there are stories of powerful beings called the Abantu Bomdabu, the people of the stars, who descended from the heavens and demanded gold. These celestial visitors, according to the tales, lived underground and used human beings as laborers. The parallels between these traditions and the Anunnaki narrative are difficult to ignore. In Mesopotamia itself, archaeological discoveries add further layers. Cylinder seals, tiny carved objects used to imprint images into wet clay, depict scenes of winged beings interacting with humans. Some even show objects resembling tools, flight-like devices, and star symbols. One famous seal, often referred to as VA243, appears to show a central sun orbited by multiple planets in a layout eerily similar to our solar system. Critics argue this is a misinterpretation, but believers see it as visual proof that ancient Sumerians possessed advanced astronomical knowledge, possibly taught by their sky-born visitors. Additionally, the sheer volume and detail of Sumerian tablets recovered from sites like Nippur and Uruk contain what some believe to be technical information disguised in religious narrative. These clay documents reference measurements, metals, celestial alignments, and labor arrangements in language that often blurs the line between myth and logistics. The temple complexes, such as those at Eridu, believed to be the first city of the gods, were more than places of worship. They included granaries, workshops, and archives, indicating a system of administration that may have supported a large-scale operation. The recurrence of gold in these ancient records, not merely as a symbol of wealth but as an object of great divine importance, is central to the theory. It was gathered, counted, purified, and stored. But why? Was it ritualistic, meant to honor the gods, or was it extracted for a purpose that extended beyond Earth itself? The physical remnants of these sites may not answer the question definitively, but they present a puzzle that grows more intricate the deeper one digs. The mainstream scholarly view approaches these ancient texts and archaeological sites with a lens shaped by context, symbolism, and the evolution of human myth-making. Most historians and archaeologists interpret the Anunnaki not as literal beings from another world, but as symbolic representations of natural forces, deified ancestors, or socio-political structures. In this framework, myths like the Enuma Elish are understood as cosmological allegories, stories designed to explain creation, kingship, and divine order rather than historical events. The long reigns listed in the Sumerian king list, which span thousands of years, are typically seen by scholars as theological or ideological expressions. Ancient people may have attributed longer lives to early rulers to emphasize their divine favor or establish a mythical golden age. Similar exaggerations are found in other cultures, such as the biblical lifespans of early patriarchs. These timeframes, say scholars, are not to be taken literally, but as reflections of a worldview where time and divinity were closely intertwined. When it comes to the gold mines of southern Africa, most archaeologists date the earliest confirmed human mining activity in the region to around 43,000 years ago, associated with early Homo sapiens. These mines, they argue, were likely used by indigenous people for pigments such as ochre, and later for small-scale metal extraction during the Iron Age. While the sites are indeed ancient, there is currently no widely accepted evidence of advanced mining technologies or extraterrestrial involvement. The VA-243 cylinder seal, often cited by ancient astronaut theorists for its supposed depiction of the solar system, is interpreted differently by academics. They argue that the so-called planets are stylized symbols rather than scientific diagrams. Moreover, no evidence exists that the Sumerians had a heliocentric model of the solar system. Their cosmology placed the Earth at the center, with celestial bodies moving around it. While the Sumerians had impressive astronomical skills, mainstream scholars believe these were observational rather than advanced in a technological sense. The creation myths involving mixing clay with divine blood are viewed as metaphorical tales, rich with symbolism about the origin of life and the sacred nature of kingship. In this interpretation, the Anunnaki's labor crisis and the crafting of humans are seen as allegories for the transition from a divine realm to a human-centered world, where rulers act as intermediaries between gods and people. These stories, according to scholars, reflect ancient understandings of human suffering, labor, and destiny, not genetic engineering. Most importantly, the notion that the Anunnaki came from a planet called Nibiru is not supported by any direct textual evidence from original Sumerian sources. The idea of Nibiru as a rogue planet entering the solar system is a modern interpretation with no consensus in the academic community. While Nibiru does appear in some Mesopotamian texts, it is typically associated with a star or celestial event, not an inhabited planet. In the scholarly view, ancient people constructed these myths to give meaning to their environment, explain natural phenomena, and legitimize social hierarchies. While the stories of the Anunnaki are compelling, mainstream interpretations insist they belong to the realm of mythology and human imagination, not ancient spacefaring civilizations. This academic skepticism forms a necessary counterbalance to more speculative theories, emphasizing evidence-based conclusions rooted in established historical methods. Despite the confidence of conventional scholarship, the Anunnaki narrative continues to stir deep curiosity precisely because so many questions remain unanswered. One of the most persistent issues is the sheer depth and consistency of ancient Mesopotamian records. Tens of thousands of clay tablets, recovered from sites like Nineveh and Nippur, contain intricate descriptions of the gods, their duties, and their interactions with humanity. The level of detail, specific names, locations, and lineages suggests more than symbolic storytelling. To some, it feels like a chronicle. Among the unresolved questions is the uniformity of gold's sacred status across disconnected ancient cultures. From the Sumerians and Egyptians to the Incas and Aztecs, gold was revered not for its utility but for its association with the divine. It was rarely used as currency in the ancient world. Instead, it was buried with the dead, used to gild temples, and reserved for the gods. If gold was universally seen as a spiritual conduit or a link to the heavens, what originally shaped that belief? Could it reflect a shared ancestral memory of a time when gold truly did have a purpose beyond the earth? Another major gap in scholarly consensus surrounds the origins of advanced knowledge in early Mesopotamian society. How did the Sumerians, emerging seemingly suddenly in the historical record, develop such sophisticated systems of mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, and governance? There is no known developmental path from hunter-gatherer groups to the sudden complexity of Sumerian cities like Uruk and Eridu. The leap appears discontinuous. Some scholars attribute this to lost cultures or regional diffusion, but no definitive link has been found. The creation story from the Epic of Atrahasis also presents a challenge. While modern interpreters often label it as myth, the tale involves remarkably specific sequences: the selection of a god to be sacrificed, the mixing of that god's blood with clay, the involvement of female deities in gestation, and the resulting being's role as a labourer. These steps resemble a process, deliberate, ordered, and involving transformation. If purely symbolic, why such precise narrative structure? Skeptics of the mainstream view also point to linguistic anomalies. The term Anunnaki itself does not comfortably align with metaphor. The prefix An refers to the sky god Anu, while Nuna suggests royalty or princely status. Together it forms those of royal blood from the heavens. This phrasing invites literal interpretation. In addition, the consistent reference to the Anunnaki as those who came down from the sky or descended to earth gives some pause. Was it all just metaphor, or is it possible these descriptions were meant to be taken literally? Even the standard dismissal of Nibiru raises concerns. While scholars may not accept Sitchin's orbital theory, the name Nibiru appears in multiple Babylonian and Assyrian texts as a powerful celestial entity. In some contexts it represents a star, in others a crossing point or transition. The word's ambiguity keeps it open to interpretation, and some believe that ancient peoples themselves may have had varied understandings of its meaning. Ultimately, the unanswered questions surrounding the Anunnaki, their purpose, and the origins of gold reverence remain fertile ground for inquiry. When viewed as a body of myth alone, the narrative holds symbolic power. But when paired with physical anomalies, ancient sites, and lingering gaps in human history, the mystery only deepens. These unresolved threads are what keep the theory alive, even as academia continues to push back. Beyond the cautious boundaries of mainstream scholarship lies a world of speculative ideas that attempt to reframe the Anunnaki not as mythological constructs, but as real beings with advanced capabilities, possibly even extraterrestrial in origin. Central to this alternative interpretation is the proposal that the Anunnaki were not gods in the religious sense, but highly advanced visitors from another world who interacted with early humans in ways later recorded as divine intervention. These theories, while controversial, draw from ancient texts, oral traditions, and architectural enigmas that seem to defy the technological limits of their time. One of the most provocative claims comes from those who believe the Anunnaki had the ability to manipulate DNA. According to this view, early humans were genetically modified to create a workforce capable of mining gold and performing tasks the lesser Anunnaki had abandoned. This is not simply metaphorical engineering, it suggests actual biological experimentation. Proponents point to phrases found in Sumerian tablets that refer to the mixing of essences, or blood of the gods, which they interpret as descriptions of gene splicing or the transfer of genetic material. Supporters of this theory also revisit the story of Adapa, a figure created by the god Ea. Adapa was granted great wisdom but denied immortality. To some, this tale is emblematic of deliberate genetic limitation, an advanced species designing a being with intelligence but without eternal life, possibly to prevent rebellion or preserve dominance. Such ideas are bolstered by the detailed nature of the narrative and its parallels to later religious texts that describe the creation of man in the image of divine beings. Other fringe theorists explore the possibility that the Anunnaki did not simply leave Earth, but left behind outposts, relics, or even bloodlines. The concept of divine kingship, common in many ancient cultures, often includes origin myths linking royal families to the gods. In Sumer, kings claimed descent from the Anunnaki. This belief extended into Assyria, Babylon, and Egypt, where rulers were seen not just as political leaders, but as literal offspring or intermediaries of celestial beings. Could these traditions preserve the memory of a hybrid ruling class, part human, part other? Architectural anomalies also fuel fringe speculation. Structures like the massive stones at Baalbek, the platform foundations at Eridu, and the intricate precision of megalithic temples around the world are often cited as evidence of forgotten technologies. Some believe these sites were not merely religious centers but served technological purposes, perhaps even as energy centers, observatories, or transportation nodes for the Anunnaki. The idea of ancient power grids or planetary alignments guiding these constructions remains a core theme in speculative archaeology. Still, others propose that the Anunnaki story is part of a broader galactic narrative, where Earth was once a colony or resource hub in a vast interstellar system. In this framework, the Anunnaki were one of many advanced species, and the genetic manipulation of early humans was just one episode in a longer cosmic timeline. These interpretations, while lacking direct proof, draw their power from the consistency of myth across time and geography. While such ideas remain on the fringe, their allure lies in the alternative perspective they offer, a narrative in which humans are not the pinnacle of evolution by chance, but the product of deliberate design, shaped by beings whose motives may still remain hidden in the dust of the ancient world. The Anunnaki Gold Theory carries implications that extend far beyond ancient Mesopotamia. Whether viewed through a symbolic lens or as a literal account of contact with advanced beings, the story invites reflection on the deeper patterns that link humanity's myths, religions, and civilizations. Gold, in this context, becomes more than a resource. It becomes a symbol of divinity, immortality, and power. The consistent reverence for gold across ancient cultures hints at a shared understanding that predates written language or recorded history. In spiritual traditions worldwide, gold has been associated with the sun, with enlightenment, and with eternal life. In alchemy, gold represented perfection, the final stage of transformation and the goal of the great work. In Egyptian cosmology, the flesh of the gods was said to be made of gold, and pharaohs were often adorned in it, during both life and death. In Hindu mythology, celestial beings wore garments woven with gold. Even in Christian tradition, gold is linked to divine light, heavenly realms, and sacred offerings. Across time and space, gold has been more than a metal. It has carried spiritual weight and been linked to the idea of otherworldly origin. If the Anunnaki did come to Earth in search of gold, and if humans were created or altered to assist them, the implications challenge every aspect of our understanding of human history. In this view, the gods of ancient lore were not ethereal spirits, but tangible forces, technologically advanced beings whose presence inspired awe and obedience. Rituals, temples, and mythologies may have been humanity's attempt to preserve the memory of interactions it could not fully comprehend. Over time, those memories became myth, and the original context faded. This theory also casts a new light on the concept of divine hierarchy. The recurring motif of a celestial elite ruling over humans, teaching, judging, sometimes punishing, mirrors the narrative of a genetically superior overseer class. Ancient kings who claimed divine ancestry may have been echoing this idea, consciously or not. The divine right of kings, the belief in God-given authority, and even the separation of priestly and royal classes in early societies could be cultural echoes of a time when gods walked among men. Furthermore, if humanity was engineered for labor, it raises philosophical questions about free will, destiny, and the essence of consciousness. Are we, as some have suggested, the result of cosmic experimentation? Or did these myths evolve independently to help humans grapple with the burdens of mortality and toil? The symbolic resonance of humans being made from clay reflects both humility and mystery, a simultaneous reminder of our earthly origins and our potential connection to something greater. Even the idea of a return, found in many prophecies and apocalyptic traditions, gains new meaning under this theory. Could myths of the gods returning, of judgment, or of reawakening be rooted in the expectation that those who once came to Earth would come again? Theories about Nibiru's orbit and cyclical appearances align eerily with the ancient preoccupation with celestial cycles and catastrophic resets. Ultimately, the Anunnaki story, whether taken literally or symbolically, offers a profound meditation on human purpose, memory, and longing. It suggests that our greatest mysteries may not be buried beneath the ground, but within the recurring symbols and stories that have travelled with us through time. These echoes, ancient yet familiar, continue to shape our collective imagination and beckon us to reconsider where we came from and what we may have forgotten. Throughout the episode, a pattern emerges, one not defined by definitive answers, but by a constellation of recurring motifs, inexplicable artifacts, and questions left unresolved by time. At the centre is the Anunnaki Gold Theory, a narrative that bridges ancient mythology, physical evidence, and speculative cosmology. The story touches on fundamental aspects of the human experience, where we come from, why we exist, and what forces may have shaped us long before our recorded history began. Among the most compelling facts is the vast collection of Mesopotamian tablets, many of which describe beings descending from the heavens, organizing human society, and establishing laws, trades, and religious practices. These texts often distinguish between the higher gods and the working class of deities who toiled on earth, a detail that aligns with the theory of labor delegation and the eventual creation of humans as workers. The narrative found in the Epic of Atrahasis, for example, is rich with dialogue, internal conflict among gods, and logistical decisions that sound less like folklore and more like documentation. The ancient mining operations in southern Africa remain another central piece of the puzzle. Dated far beyond what traditional models of civilization allow, these sites suggest a deep and sustained interest in gold extraction. When paired with oral traditions that speak of sky gods and forced labor, the archaeological record takes on a tone of mystery that cannot be easily explained through conventional timelines. No clear answer is for who mined the gold so early, or why gold remained such a focus in pre-monetary cultures. The consistency of mythological themes across the world also adds to the intrigue. Gods descending from the sky, teaching mankind agriculture, metallurgy, astronomy, and sacred rituals. These motifs surface not just in Mesopotamia, but in the Andes, in the Indus Valley, and among the Dogon people of West Africa. While mainstream views explain these as parallel developments or archetypes of the human psyche, others see them as fragments of a unified global story, one passed down through different voices, filtered through time. The persistent reverence for gold, especially in religious contexts, becomes difficult to dismiss as coincidence. It was reserved for the gods, never tarnished, immune to decay, and always associated with the sacred. Whether adorning pharaohs or lining the tombs of Sumerian elites, gold was consistently treated as something otherworldly. If the Anunnaki truly valued gold for technological reasons, perhaps as a component for their own survival, then humanity's inherited veneration of it could be more than symbolic. It could be instinctual, rooted in a purpose long forgotten. Despite efforts by scholars to distance myth from material evidence, the emotional and cultural weight of these stories persists. People continue to be drawn to the Anunnaki narrative not only because of its exotic elements, but because it dares to connect dots that mainstream history keeps apart. The theory serves as a mirror, reflecting both our fascination with the past and our uncertainty about it. As the pieces are laid out, the texts, the mines, the myths, the monuments, one is left with more than a theory. There is a framework, fragile but compelling, suggesting that history may not be a straight line, but a spiral, curving back toward truths too old to be fully remembered, yet too strange to be completely dismissed. The Anunnaki Gold Theory ultimately invites a fundamental re-evaluation of the human story. Whether viewed as an allegory of divine intervention or a literal account of ancient contact with advanced beings, the narrative challenges the conventional boundaries of archaeology, religion, and science. It suggests that civilization may not have developed solely through slow, linear progress, but perhaps with outside influence, an intervention that set us on a trajectory we have only begun to understand. If the Anunnaki were real, then humanity's earliest leaps in language, architecture, metallurgy, and governance might not have been born entirely from Earth. The temples, ziggurats, and artifacts left behind would stand not only as expressions of worship, but as echoes of instruction, blueprints left by those who shaped the foundation of human society. The clay tablets of Mesopotamia, long regarded as myth, might instead be records of an age when humans lived under the watchful eye of beings from beyond. And if the story is symbolic, it is no less profound. In that reading, the Anunnaki represent our ancestors' deepest questions about creation, labor, mortality, and meaning. They symbolize the forces we could not control and the powers we long to understand. Gold becomes a metaphor not just for divinity or value, but for the unreachable, the incorruptible, the eternal. Whether those early myths captured literal events or collective dreams, they spoke to the same human need, to find purpose within the mystery. What makes the Anunnaki Gold Theory persist in modern thought is not just the evidence, fragmentary as it may be, but the way it speaks to something buried in us. It taps into a lingering suspicion that we are not alone, that our origins are more complicated than the textbooks suggest, and that the truths hidden in ancient ruins may be more extraordinary than we ever imagined. In the end, we are left with questions that refuse to go away. Why was gold so important to the gods of old? Why do so many creation myths across the globe speak of beings who descended from the sky? Why did civilization bloom so suddenly in Sumer, seemingly without precedent? And most of all, what if the stories we call myth are memories of something real, preserved in symbols, rituals, and stone? Thanks for listening. This has been Ancient Mysteries. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.